I think this would have frightened almost anyone who saw it. I saw a werewolf. Nobody wants to wake up in the night and see something looking back at them from their bedroom window. That's, I guess, why it's so surprising how many times this gets reported happening to people. This episode is entirely filled with 4 different stories about the strange things people claim to have seen staring at them in the night. Take, for example, this first narrative we call Dogman's glowing eyes lit up the bedroom. Dear Scary Stories NYC, my aunt in New Jersey asked me to come watch her cats as she and her boyfriend or fiance or whatever that guy is went camping. This was just a few weeks back, and I was excited to take the cat sitting gig as it meant getting out of my cramped apartment where I had been quarantining with a roommate. My aunt had jokingly referred to her camping trip as a hunt for Bigfoot, but neither of us expected that I would be the one to see a cryptid at my aunt's New Jersey home. That's not to say my aunt lives in an urban area like Hoboken or Jersey City, because she does not. We call her our rich aunt for a reason. She lives on the outskirts of Medford Lakes, not too far from the country club there. It's on the edge of somewhat untouched forest lands that stretch to the northeast, including the Bear Swamp Preserve. She does live right next door to the country, and I had sometimes seen somewhat rare animals when I'd been out there before. I never in a million years would have expected to see a Medford Lakes version of the Dogman. So here's what happened. I went to bed. That was my contribution to the story. Then I woke up because I was dreaming that it was late in the morning and that I had overslept. When I opened my eyes, I saw a golden glow filling the room. It looked more like dawn than late morning, so I felt a sense of relief that I could probably go back to sleep for a while longer. As I sighed and relaxed, though, I heard a sound outside the window, and I glanced over. What I saw was basically the shock of my life. Granted, I've had a pretty shock-free life so far, but I think this would have frightened almost anyone who saw it, especially when you were in a location where such things are not even part of local legend. I saw what looked like a werewolf. It was drooling and snarling and clutching its awful-looking monster claws, and it was staring into the room with these golden headlights where its eyes should have been. Have you ever seen that show called The Boys? It's on some streaming service. I never know which one I'm watching anymore. There's a bad guy in it with blonde hair that can shoot you with Star Trek phasers that come from his eyes. Before he shoots people, though, his eyes glow a whitish red. This was like that, but imagine the glow was a very warm yellowy golden color like a sunrise or a sunset. It was bright enough to light the room that I was in. I ran and hid in the closet, which was an idiotic thing to do. I had the run of the entire house, and I ran into the closet. As the adrenaline helped me wake up, it dawned on me that I should probably go somewhere else. The trouble was, I was going to have to see that Dogman again when I left the closet, and it was such a horrible thing to see that I just stayed there hiding behind those doors for a while longer, shaking all over and trying to get up the nerve to go out there. When I finally did, though, the Dogman was gone, and the room was dark again. I ran upstairs like a little chicken and went to sleep in a bedroom up there. From that point on, I was paranoid about checking that every door and window were locked before I could relax in that house. I no longer used the downstairs except for the kitchen, and I no longer used the kitchen After dark, I would eat and watch TV in that upstairs bedroom, and I used my laptop there as well. I was too afraid of seeing the Medford Lakes Dogman again to go back downstairs for any other reason. It sends shivers through me when I think about that Dogman, but my family enjoys kidding me about it. They ask me if the Dogman is a member of the country club and what his handicap is at golf. They talk about Dogman's tax bracket and how he must be rich to be able to afford to live in Medford Lakes. I try to laugh when the jokes are okay, but I still wish they would realize that I saw something real. It scared the daylights out of me, and I'm still rattled about it. I don't want to be dramatic and compare it to anything traumatic exactly, but it was shocking, and it's going to take me a while to get over it. Even back in the city, I wake up at night thinking I'm being watched. I'm paranoid and jumpy, even when walking around in the daytime. My worldview was shattered, and I guess for a while, I'm not going to be certain what's real and what isn't. It'll take some time for me to recover from the night that Dogman's glowing eyes lit up the bedroom. Our executive producer goes the extra mile. His last name's Montez, his first name's Kyle. Thank you, Kyle Montez, for your continuing support. If you would like to help us stay on the air, like today's executive producer Kyle Montez, all you have to do is join our channel memberships by clicking the join link below, or join our paid subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Either way, you get to see our secret uncensored Sunday night stories, which are far too wild to tell on this channel, plus access to our over 10 hours of scary uncensored stories. Speaking of stories, we've got 3 more of them for you in this episode, and this next one is called My Dead Uncle Was in My Garden Last Night. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I saw my uncle last night peeping into my bedroom. The problem is that he passed away back in March. You don't have to believe me, but this is a true story, and it happened just last night. I've missed my uncle a lot since he passed away. He was always my favorite since I was a kid, and we had remained friends into my adulthood. He was one of the only people in my parents' generation who treated me as an equal, and he was also good at giving me advice that helped me avoid conflict. I have a tendency to charge straight ahead, but my uncle was a charmer. He taught me the few social graces that I know, and without him, it's a bit harder for me to get along with others during stressful periods. I probably could use his advice more now than ever. But he's gone, and that's that. Or is it? Because last night, I woke up after 3 a.m. to a tapping sound outside my window. I live in Oregon, and we've had people march down our block demanding we give up our homes to them. I've become paranoid about every little noise at night, thinking someone might be breaking in to steal my very house itself. So that tapping got my immediate attention, and I jumped out of bed to see my late uncle. He didn't look well. He appeared pale. Hell, let's get real. He looked as though he had passed away in March, which he did, except he was standing up in the flowers outside, and he was staring in at me with a brain-dead expression on his face. I screamed and ran upstairs to where my sister is staying with her new husband until they can afford their own place. I told her what I saw, and she laughed at me. Her husband believes in ghosts, though, so he ran downstairs wanting to see what I saw. There was nothing there by that point, but he still believed me. My sister thought we were both nut jobs and went back to bed, but her husband and I both stayed up talking in the kitchen for a while until we could calm down. In the morning, I heard another tapping sound on the window and I nearly died from shock. But this time, It was my brother-in-law tapping on the glass. He told me to come outside. When I got out there, he showed me the footprints all over my garden, right where I had seen my late uncle. I laughed and told him it was a good prank. I assumed he had made the tracks himself and complained that he had trampled some of my mountain flowers. But then, he held his foot next to one of the shoe prints, and his foot was quite a bit larger, even barefoot. So was mine. This was a man's shoe print, but one left by a smaller fellow. My uncle was 5'8". He was not tall. I saw the footprints. I saw the trampled flowers. He was physically there. I saw him with my own eyes, and I saw the physical evidence that he had been there. How am I supposed to live in my own home any longer, now that I know for a fact that my dead uncle was in my garden last night? I saw a Mothman flying past my high-rise apartment. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I have a monster sighting from Cleveland. Do you get many reports from here? This is not a Dogman sighting, however. What I saw flew right past my window. I was awakened the other night after 3 a.m. and noticed my bedroom bathed in a glowing red light. Waking up and looking around, I could tell that the red light was coming from the window behind my head. Rising and turning to look, I was shocked to see two big red glowing eyes staring back at me through that window. They looked as much like lights as they looked like eyes, but they were not artificial looking. They had eyelids and would squint or grow wider, giving it a very organic look, just not a kind of organic that we're used to seeing on this planet. This caused me to get up out of bed and get away from that window. There should have been no way someone could be outside there. I live on the 30th floor, and my balcony is on the opposite side of the apartment. As I stood and moved back, I could tell that whatever or whoever this was, they were floating or levitating out there in the night, staring into my bedroom and spying on me. I felt like I was having a flashback times 12. I had never witnessed such vivid and specific hallucinations before. This seemed 100% solid and real. This did not feel like a dream or as though I were imagining it. The creature, or whatever it was, seemed to lose interest in staring at me if I was going to stare back at it, and I watched it begin to move to my right and away from the window. I remember wondering if I were seeing a bird or a man in a jetpack wearing a helmet with red lights on it. I ran out into the living room to see if I could get another look at the thing, and I was absolutely stunned to see it flying away. It was not a man in a jetpack, and although it had large wings, it was clearly not a bird. It seemed to be a man with wings, but not a man at all. He or she or whatever was wearing a monster costume maybe, or, and this is the idea I subscribe to, it actually probably was a monster of some sort. I watched as the thing glided out toward Lake Erie and seemed to be heading in the general direction of Detroit. I never saw it flap its wings, but I watched as it rose higher into the sky. When it got above the tallest buildings, I couldn't see it any longer. I had little doubt it was there, but there were no lights that far up to illuminate it any longer. I wondered if I had a heat vision or an infrared camera, what I might have seen. Did it give off a heat signature? I really wish I knew. It might give us a clue as to what it was. Some of my friends think I saw a balloon, but that wouldn't explain how the glowing eyes seemed so real and organic when I saw them up close outside my window. It also seemed to have some weight to it as it moved along. I think a balloon would have been buffeted by the winds and thrown about a bit more. Whatever this thing was, it made its way along steadily, heading consistently in the direction it seemed to want to head in. However it was floating or gliding or levitating along, it seemed to be entirely in control of the process. One of my friends says I saw a Mothman. I guess that the descriptions of Mothman come closest to describing what I saw, but I'm still not sure. Honestly, I have no idea what it was that I saw that night. I know I've installed Venetian blinds in my bedroom and that I have no interest in ever seeing the thing again. My sleep has been irregular since then, and I have a recurring nightmare that the creature is in my room with me, bathing the entire place in that same creepy red color that I saw that night. I've even considered moving, except that I finally have this apartment paid off and it's fully mine. With things the way they are, I would not get the same back that I've invested into this place already, so for financial reasons, it would be crazy for me to move from here right now. I want to ride out the health situation for one thing. I guess I'm wondering if anyone in your audience can tell me what that was that I saw, and also if this is a dangerous thing to see. Do I have to be worried about the thing? Does it present potential harm to humans? I feel a complete nervous wreck since I saw a Mothman flying past my high-rise apartment. Dead man, staring in the basement window. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I once stayed for a summer with my cousins out in Freehold, New Jersey. They lived near St. Rose of Lima Cemetery, which is not a particularly old one. I never found it scary looking, even when I walked past it at night. Just sort of sad thinking about all the people who were now missed by their families. I never noticed people who were buried earlier than the 20th century when I would stroll through there, and the headstones are mainly pretty ordinary and, no offense to the souls buried there, but fairly generic. There's nothing about the place that ever seemed haunted or strange to me at all. I had a fear of almost anything creepy when I was a kid, and I believed in all monsters. I even believed in the Frankenstein monster, okay? I was a monster believer, but even I was not afraid of that cemetery. Then one night, as my cousins and I were walking down Old Monmouth Road to take a shortcut to their home, we saw something that seemed, to all three of us, like a zombie walking among the tombstones. This was a male, wearing torn-up, formal clothes. It was pale-skinned and filthy, and really honestly looked like it had dug itself out of its own grave. Even as kids, we figured it was some kind of an addict or a drunk out there, shambling around. But he gave us the creeps, and we hurried up to get out of there before he noticed us. I didn't think he would attack us since there were three of us and only one of him, but I was kinda more afraid we'd get harassed for our change. After we got back to their house, we regrouped in the basement to talk about what we had seen. The younger cousin and I slept down there in the basement while the older brother slept up on the second floor. He hung out with us for a while, then eventually went upstairs to go to bed. At some point, in the middle of the night, I awoke to the strange feeling that someone was watching me. I tried to ignore that feeling and go back to sleep, but it persisted, and eventually I opened my eyes and took a look around the room. It was just me and my cousin there, same as usual, but I couldn't shake that odd feeling. I sat up and looked around the room once more, and this time I did a double take when my eyes went past the window up high near the ceiling. There in the basement, we were obviously below ground level, but the window up by the ceiling looked out at the ground level of the side of the house. In other words, the window was right at ground level, and it was a few feet too high for me to reach when I was that age. But it wasn't the window that caught my eye. It was what was laying on its side outside that window. The zombie creep from the cemetery was right there, and he seemed to be staring in at me. I screamed without meaning to, and I woke my cousin. He got angry and asked me what my problem was, but all I could do was point to the window. When he looked where I was pointing, he jumped out of his bed, which was closer to the window, and ran over to me. I asked him what he saw, and he told me it was that guy from the cemetery, and he was laying down on his side up there, staring in at us. He must have followed us home the night before. After a few minutes of not knowing what to do, we both decided we needed to go upstairs, wake the adults and my older cousin up, and we needed to get this guy off our property. But the longer we saw his face up there, the more we thought this might be a genuine zombie. This guy did not look alive. He looked like he was a character from Night of the Living Dead. So, we woke everyone up, and the father of the family armed himself with a flashlight and a weapon of his choosing, and he went out there to see what was going on. We all waited breathlessly to hear or see what was going to happen. After a while, he came back in and reported that nobody was there at all. We insisted he walk us back to our beds and make sure the thing was gone. In fact, we could no longer see him from that window. The father didn't believe anything we said and was quite annoyed, but my cousin's mother forced him to reach up and pull the shades over the window shut so that we wouldn't see anything else. She seemed to think it was at least possible we were telling the truth, and for that we were grateful. We never saw that zombie guy again, either in the cemetery or outside the basement window, so we never really knew what the explanation for him was. I still like to think that on that night, my cousin and I actually witnessed a dead man staring in the basement window. That was a tough loss. Tell me, how's the team taking it?
As captain of this team,
You're not captain.
as, like, assistant captain?
This is Dill Brigida for the Stunning Orb. Oh!
Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it. You can become a channel member by clicking the join link below. Then you can check our community page to find the links to 10 hours or more of secret, uncensored Dogman stories too wild to be told on this channel. Your other option is to join our paid subscribers club at peterbernard.com. That's Peter's homemade club, where he will personally email you the links as well as occasional secret club messages. You may also be included as an executive producer in a future episode. You have a scary experience you want to tell us about? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com, or else call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LESS-SCARY. The machine cuts off every few minutes, so if you have a long story, please keep calling back and we'll piece it together later on. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.